Yeah, that really is an amazing milestone. And Diane and I hit 38 a couple of weeks ago, and we thought that was amazingly significant. Well, it is. It is. But then again, we're not old people like... right. So, folks, I want to speak to you this morning about the best year ever. So how many of you can say that 2021 was your best year ever, last year? You can only do that if you're 1 year old, you've only lived a year, eh? How many of you are saying, I'm glad 2021 is over? Your favorite verse for last year is, this too shall pass. Eh? How many of you are expecting 2022 to be a better year? Absolutely. You ready for a new year? I certainly am. And so I want to speak to you about how to have the best year ever. By the way, this is going to be the greatest sermon I've preached this year, so you really need to pay attention. So everybody say, bring it on. Bring it on. We want a better year. Craig, you're an absolute champion. So I'm going to guarantee you, if you're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do this morning, you're going to have the best year ever. And you know what? Everyone can achieve this. The bad news is it's going to be so simple that some of you are going to just dismiss it, say, that's just like way too easy. Well, it's not way too easy, and it's not nonsense. And I know that maybe some of you are going to say it's going to be the same old, but I'll tell you what, it's Jesus. And it's going to be what Spencer read for us this morning, if you can remember that. So some of you might want to take out your phones and make some notes, and they're not going to be big. It's just a couple of things that we want to speak about this morning, so you really can have the best year. I'm an eternal optimist. Don will tell you that. I'm always thinking it's going to be a great year. And I think the signs are there that it seems like we're even over the fourth wave. Does it seem like that? And it seems like our numbers are coming down. And how much you can trust the numbers, I don't know. But I just kind of got this feeling in, my dad used to say, I got a feeling in my water. Now, I don't know what that means. But I tell you, I got a feeling in my water that this is going to be a great, great year. So, folks, here it is. Here it is. If it's going to be a great year, every day serve somebody. Does that sound like Jesus? Every day serve someone. Live the intentional life of doing for others. It's about putting people first and adding value to their lives. I mean, that's just Jesus. We're talking Jesus here, folks. Benjamin Franklin, for those of you who don't know Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of America, he said, no one is useless in this life who lightens the burden of someone else. And I don't want to be useless in this life. I want to add value to the people who I come in contact with. Mahatma Gandhi, you know who he is. He said the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. That's a great thing to do this year, hey? Just lose yourself in the service of others. Albert Schweitzer, let me tell you about Albert Schweitzer. Albert Schweitzer, I read it a couple of times this weekend. You know, sometimes you read a word and you know what it means. But after the second time I've read it, because Albert Schweitzer had called him a polymath. I've never heard that word before in my life. I read it twice in 1 week. A polymath is someone who's got such a great knowledge. They know so much about so many different things. And he was one of those people. He was a theologian, an organist, a musicologist, a writer, humanitarian. He was a philosopher. He was a doctor. They said this guy knew so much about so much. And he said, I don't know what your destiny will be. But one thing I know, the only ones among you who will be truly happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. I think it's awesome. If you really, really want to be happy, find out how you can serve the people around you. See, the happiest people are not necessarily the most successful people. The happiest people are those who have discovered how to serve. I haven't got it on your screen because I thought about it afterwards. Surely we must get a quote from Desmond Tutu at a time like this. He said, do the little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. Everybody doing those little bits of good together. They come into that jigsaw puzzle and they overwhelm the world. You know, I've met a lot of unhappy, successful people, but I've never met an unhappy person who's given his life in the service of others and adding value to their lives. Zig Ziglar, do you remember that? I love his books, that motivational speaker. He said, if you will help people get what they want, you will receive everything that you want in this life. If you will help other people get what they want, you'll get what you want in otherwise. In other words, if you want to have a great life, learn to serve and value people. Folks, here's a guarantee. If you're always finding fault with people and refuse to serve them, you will live a miserable life. You'll be unhappy, and you will be miserable, and you'll be depressed, and you don't know why, and you're going to blame it on everybody else. But if we can be like Jesus, and we can be like these great men who spoke about these things that Jesus taught, we can learn this great life, and we can be happy, not because we're serving ourselves, but be serving others. Martin Luther King said this: everyone can be great because everyone can serve. I like that. Everyone can be great because everyone can serve. You know, there is only one time in the Gospels that Jesus said, follow me, follow my example. Remember when that was? It was when he was washing the feet of his disciples. We'll get to that in a short while. So Jesus is going into his upper room, and the disciples are arguing about which of them is the greatest in the kingdom. I mean, Jesus is not even dead yet. And his disciples, in earshot, they're speaking about amongst us. Is it you? You know, it's Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, Thaddeus. Is it you? He says, you're going to be it. I'm sure it's going to be me. I'm going to be the greatest. They're speaking like this. They're also arguing about who's going to get to sit closest to Jesus. Let me read with you Luke chapter 22, verses 24 to 26, verse 27. Within minutes, this sounds like human nature, they were bickering over who of them would end up the greatest. You know, it's kind of like, I don't see this happening in this country, but I know in America, universities, they kind of vote, and you know, in the yearbook, who's going to be the greatest, who's going to turn out to be the greatest. I think it's unbelievably presumptuous to me. But Jesus intervened. He's like, what are you thinking, arguing about who's going to be the greatest? Kings like to throw their weight around, and people in authority like to give themselves fancy titles. Doesn't that sound like, just even in the religious world, fancy titles? It's not going to be that way with you. Let the senior among you become like the junior. Let the leader act the part of a servant. Who would you rather be? The one who eats dinner or the one who serves the dinner? It's a banquet. Who would you rather be? The person who gets to eat the dinner or the one who's the servant? You'd rather eat and be served, right? But that's huge. But this is Jesus. But taken my place among you as one who serves. You see, Jesus is trying to get this sort of vertical thinking out the way. You know, with this pecking order, and my job in life is to try and get up the pecking order. Climb the ladder to success. How many times have you heard about that? Climbing the ladder to success. No one says climb down the ladder to success. climb down the ladder to serve the others so they can be successful. Jesus is teaching horizontal thinking. And it's amazing that Jesus, the Son of God, has taken his place among us as one who serves. A couple of points this morning. I think it's just 3 or 4. Number one, servants, true servants like Jesus, choose service over status. Choose service over status. Philippians chapter 2. Don't push your way to the front. You can see this is Eugene Peterson's The Message. Don't push your way to the front. Don't sweet talk your way to the top. Put yourself aside and help others get ahead. Don't be obsessed with getting your own advantage. Forget yourself long enough to lend a helping hand. Church, if we're going to have a great year, we're going to have to learn to be servants. And if this is going to be the greatest year of our lives, we're going to have to learn to serve more than we've ever served in our life before. And if you're going to learn to serve people, you're going to have to forget yourself. It's not about you. You know, I know people that are exactly the opposite. Every conversation is all about them. They're so full of themselves. Who am I? Where am I going? It's all about me. My doctor loves this word, and it's the word boogamina. He said we live in a boogamina world. For those of you who don't know Zulu, it means look at me, look at me, look at me. We live in a world where just say you can't drive anyone. Someone's taking a selfie of themselves, even by themselves. And I'm sure their phones are filled up with pictures, and those pictures are mainly of themselves. You know, you can't take a picture of yourself unless you pose, hey? It's like all over the ruckus. You know, it's all about ourselves. And they're not good enough to take a picture, then you must go and edit that picture. And you must beautify yourselves. We live in the selfie generation. It's about booger-mina. And you know what? We're born selfish. Think about that. Because we learn if we cry, somebody puts a dome in your mouth or gives us something. And you know, listen, the bigger you cry, the more attention you get. It's all about us. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you can generally say you're not a selfish person? Don't put your hand up. Don't put your hand up. Maybe you can nudge the person next to you and you can just go like that. Me, I'm not a selfish person. Because I want to prove you wrong for a second. I mean, think about this. Somebody takes a group photo, you're in that photograph. You see that picture for the very first time, who do you look for? You look for yourself. And then you deem that picture a good picture or a bad picture on how you look. Isn't that true? Bad. It was a terrible picture. And you know, if it's just been taken, what you do is you maybe there's 12 people in that picture. You hunt the photographer down. You get all the people who've been in the picture, you get them to pose again. You get them to retake that picture. And you're going to keep on taking that picture until it's a great picture because of the way that you look. And then you still insist that you delete those other pictures. No one gets to see those other ones. Folks, if you're not intentional about serving, you will be selfish. You will be selfish. Because selfish is the natural way. It's our carnal way. Intentionally, you're going to have to ask yourself, what can I do to add value to someone else's life? Isn't this true? Because your default setting is really, what can the world do to add value to me in 2022? That's our default setting. How can I gain an advantage this year? What's going to do so that the world can pour the gracious blessings on my life? If 2022 is going to be your best year ever, you're going to have to choose service over status. Service over status. I think I've told you the story. I can't remember what it was. Philip might remember. It was last year, the year before. I had this young man pop up here to the school one day. He asked to see me, and he came to my office. He was just lovely, nice jest, maybe in his mid-20s, and he came to the office, had a seat, and I said, just got to introduce myself. He says, I used to be a student at Glenwood Christian School. And I love to talk to our old students because it's nice to see what they're doing and how they've grown up and how we've sowed into their lives. We got to talking, and he said, one of the greatest things that happened to me at Glenwood Christian School, he said, I remember a day when I was just really 2 bricks and a ticky high, as our people used to say. So walking down the back there in the breezeway, and he pointed out the door, and he said, I'm walking down there, my shoelace was undone. And he said, you got on your knees, and you did my shoelaces, and while you're doing my shoelaces, you asked me how I'm doing, and we got to talk a little bit. He said, I'll never forget that. Nobody ever does. Who doesn't do that? And I said, you know what? If you're involved in education, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, you've done that like 1,000,000 times in your life. I mean, you just do it. I mean, all of us have done it. But for whatever reason, that little act of service made a massive impression that 10, 15 years later, he can come back and he said, this is what I remember about school. You see, it's not about the title on the office door. It's about how we serve others. And it's those little acts of service, tiny little acts of service that can make a make or break difference in somebody's life. That can make an impression on them. And I'm hoping wherever he's in this life that he's getting on his knee and doing shoelaces up and engaging young people in life. Number 1, service over status. Number 2, a servant puts character over comfort. Church, you want to have a great year? Character over comfort. In other words, do the right thing whether you like it or not. There's 2 types of people. There's those who do the right thing and they feel good. And there's those who want to feel good before they do the right thing. And doing the right thing, it's never convenient. It's always inconvenient. Do you remember the story of the Good Samaritan who took care of the guy who had been beaten and robbed and he left on the side of the road? The Good Samaritan was willing to be inconvenienced. We don't know his name. I wish we knew his name. Because we need a statue of him somewhere in this world. We can go and say, yes, that's an example to us. But he's just called a good, and he's a Samaritan. And of course, you will remember there's other guys in the story, the priest and the Levi there. But if we're going to have a great life, if this is going to be the best year ever, we're going to have to be willing to be inconvenienced in the service of others where there is no payback. Not I do for you, you do for me. When you serve people, it doesn't happen on your timetable. You see, I'm sure the priest and the Levi, when they passed that guy beaten and hurt, injured on the side of I'm sure they had busy lives. I mean, after all, they were priests and they were Levites. And they walked on the other side of the road, the Bible says. It's so easy to ignore the plight of others. It's so easy to justify. We can justify it. We've got all the excuses in the book to look the other way and do the other thing. But if you do that, don't expect a great life. See, the priest and the Levi did not want to be inconvenienced. But being good religious people, because after all, they priests and Levites, I'm sure they prayed for him. Hey. I'm sure they went to wherever they were, to their lovely air-conditioned office and said, Lord, send someone to help him. Heal him, feed him, give him clothing and shelter. Lord, and they prayed for him. Prayer is sometimes a cop-out for many of us who are Christians. Sometimes we just need to shut up and do and help him. Choose character over comfort. If you choose to serve this year, there will be times you will be inconvenienced. Jesus said, if you want to save your life, you must lose it. Jesus said, if you want to be the greatest, you must be the servant. Jesus said, if you want to live, you must die. It's character over comfort. Number 3, we over me. You want to be great this year? Not the boogermina life. Choose we. Choose we over me. Servant leaders put we over me. They think of the big picture. John chapter 13 and verse 6 is an incredible passage. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. I don't want you to miss this, folks. Listen to the context. Jesus knew this is the hour. I'm out of this world, but I've got to go through this thing called crucifixion. Having loved his own and his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. He could have got out of this. And he had come from God and was returning to God. So, with all that in mind, with the crucifixion all in mind, so he got up from the meal. He took off his outer clothing and he wrapped a towel around his waist, and after that he poured water into a basin and he began to wash his disciples' feet. Hey, this is one of your last meals here on earth. Surely you make it a good one, you know? It's not about the meal. Jesus is not sitting at the meal saying, this meat could really have done with some more salt, you know? These carrots could have gone a little bit longer. It's not about that. It's about how can I serve? How can I serve? So he got up from the meal, took out his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin, began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. Folks, this is one of the most difficult hours of Jesus' life, and all he can think about is serving, serving, serving. You know, there are only 2 times in the Gospels where a basin of water is mentioned. Pilate took a basin of water, he's washed his hands, and he pleaded innocence of Jesus' blood. You see, Pilate took a basin of water, washed his hands, and put himself first. Jesus took a basin of water and put others first. Folks, this is the test of truly great men and women, as they put other people first. Remember, he's washing the feet of one who would betray him. He's washing the feet of one who would deny him. And he's washing the feet of people who would forsake him in his darkest hour. But he did it anyway. Church, remember, if you're going to be a bridge which others will cross to a greater life, you're going to have to understand, you're going to be walked on. If you're going to be a bridge to help people get from here to there, you will be walked on. That comes with the territory. And when we serve others, as we're learning from these passages of Scripture, when we serve others, we learn and we serve Jesus. Matthew 25, verse 36 and verse 40, as we start to close off our message. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. Then the righteous, we're not talking about the sinners, the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in? Or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? And the King Jesus will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. Folks, here's a staggering thought, and I don't want you to miss this. Jesus values people so much that when we serve them, he takes it personally. Do you understand that? I don't know if that really rings a bell. When we serve people, it's as if we're serving Jesus. Jesus takes that personally. You know what, if you're saying, I just don't feel so close to God at the moment, that's such an easy one to solve. Go do something for someone who's less fortunate than you are, because when you serve them, you're serving Jesus. When you serve them, you're serving God. When you feed someone, you are feeding Jesus. That's what this passage of Scripture says. And the disciples were amazed at this whole teaching. You see, they were doing some things, and they were doing some good things, but they didn't understand when they were helping people, they were helping Jesus. They never got that until he taught this teaching. Folks, this is so huge that when we do for someone else, we're doing it for God, we're doing it for Jesus. I was reminded when I put this passage, in fact, I wrote it in a pencil in my notes after I had prepared the lesson. And I think I told you the story some last year, I don't know. I was at Westwood Shopping Mall and having a cup of coffee there. I can't remember the whole scenario, but I clearly remember there was an older couple who came and sat down at, I think it was a fruit and veg when they still had it there before that auction house was taken over. And they sat at a couple, and she was in a poor way. And her incredible husband, you could see he was just loving her and doting over her and just helping her sit down. And she was struggling, and he ordered some simple food. Clearly they didn't have a lot of money. You just could see the situation. I think it was a toasted sandwich and something to drink each. And he was helping her. And I thought of my folks, in their older life and how they struggled. So I just called the waiter over, and their waiter, and I said, bring me their bill. And it was nothing. It was a nothingness amount. And I just paid it, and I left. And so to this day, they have no idea who paid for that meal, and I don't know who they are. But you know what? Who do you think felt the best that day? When you help other people, it just makes you feel so wonderful. It releases this dopamine in your life, that fantastic drug that makes you feel great. And that's what it's all about. And it's not always the big things. It's not writing $1 million check. Sometimes it's as simple as opening a door. It's opening a door. Simple things. While we're busy with our project in Waterfall, we went to this one hardware stop, and Shay, there was a lady who was carrying a gas canister. She was older lady, and she was struggling. Those little canisters are quite heavy. It was nothing. I just took it from her, went into the shop, got folded, took it out, took it back where she was catching public transport, maybe from a rural area. She was so incredibly grateful. It was nothing for us to do. But simple acts of kindness. And folks, I think from now on we need to understand when we do it for others, we do it. Jesus said, you're doing it for me. When you give a hug of encouragement, it's as if you are hugging Jesus. And I know hugs are frowned on at this time, and I know I probably cheat more than most, but I'm hoping that will all be a way. But we have to find a way of serving someone and thinking of Jesus. Folks, some great principles in the Bible. Don't rely on your position or your title, because in heaven they mean nothing. The only thing that matters, do you belong to Jesus? And have you named him as your Lord and Savior? Choose to believe in people and in their potential, unconditionally love people, because that's what Jesus did. See things from the perspective of others. Create an environment of encouragement. Folks, Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25. The reason we get together and encourage one another. You know what the writer didn't say? Get together so you can be encouraged. He doesn't say that. Your job and my job when we come here and we walk in these doors is to encourage somebody. And you know what you sow is what you reap. It's just one of those simple things. You'll never know the full impact of the small things that you do, how they impact someone's life. Some things, 5 just quick things that we can just do straight away today. Value people every day. If you don't value people, you won't add value to them. That's why Jesus valued people. He even valued the people who denied him, who lied to him, who said all sorts of crazy things, and cock-crowed and reminded Peter. He valued the people who would walk away from him in his darkest hour. Value people every day. Think of ways to value people. I mean, just think of ways. How can I add value to people's life? Look for ways to value people. You know, next time you're in a queue and there's long queues, you'll sit and moan and groan about the long queues at the post office or whatever in your license. There's an opportunity. You're standing next to someone. Even at your 1.5 meters, you can engage in conversation. You can say something to sow into people's life. Look for ways to add value to people. And then just add value. Just add value to people every day. At the end of every day, ask yourself the question, did I add value to someone's life today? See, encouraging others is adding value to people. Encouraging people is the oxygen on which we live our lives when we encourage. And I do it for you, and you do it for me. It's the smallest thing. Open a door, carry a parcel, pay for a meal. Instead of parking in the closest parking, park over there because maybe someone's struggling with their legs today or, they can't walk. Give them that parking. It's the little things that are mine. Folks, you want to have your greatest year ever? Learn to serve like Jesus. Let's stand together as we sing.